Hey, good morning. Welcome to Mentor Monday. Today is May 14th, 2018. We've designed Mentor Monday to be a weekly microdose of encouragement, inspiration, and miracle grow on your potential as a coach. About 98% of the students of Life Coach Training Institute work full-time. I know that was the case for me when I started out my coaching practice. I honestly didn't have 10 to 20 hours a week to work on my business, so learning productivity was of the utmost importance for me. And I get this question a lot. What can I do to increase my productivity? And if you read different books, if you do any research like I have, you can probably find, if you didn't find 25 ways of increasing your productivity, you could probably find 100. And honestly, for me, I'm not even going to find 25 that I could put into my life without increasing my stress levels. So what I've done today is I've boiled it down to 3 steps that I think that anybody could implement into their life. And hopefully you'll learn a lot from this today. You'll immediately be able to implement them. And here's the thing, is that if you have some great steps that you would like to suggest, I'm gonna encourage you to go on social media, join us on the conversation over there, because I'd love to find out what you've learned in your life. So with no further delay, here are the 3 steps that I have found that you can readily implement. Number 1, discover the time of the day when you're working at your optimal level. What I've learned in my research is that our optimal time of work, and when I say optimal level, I'm saying when we have the most clarity, when we're the most focused, when we're mentally sharp, when we can work at a real high intensity, that on a daily basis, there's only between 1 to 3 hours that we have out of our day when we're really working at that level. And some people say that happens in the morning. I actually read one individual say, start at 5 o'clock in the morning when there's no distractions. And if you start at 5 o'clock in the morning, you can get more done while people are asleep than you would in an entire work day. And honestly, that works for the early risers. It works for early birds like me. But honestly, I have a lot of friends and I know a lot of coaches that are a little more right-brained. They're a little more creative. And some people are just not morning people. They don't want to start their day until they've had a couple of cups of coffee, and they don't want anyone to talk to them, and all of those other kinds of things. And here's what I would say. I know a lot of creatives that do their best work at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they'll hash out a song or some kind of artistic work within a few hours, and then they'll go to bed. You know, while we're still under the covers, they're doing their best work. I would say for you, start paying attention to the patterns in your life. Start finding the time of the day when you are most in your flow, when you're most engaged, and take note of that time, because that's going to be really important for you. That it really doesn't matter what time of the day that it happens, just that it happens, and that you are starting to acknowledge when your sweet spot is and to start doing your best work, your hardest work during that time. Which leads us to number 2, work on your most important, most intensive tasks during your best time. So since you know what your optimal time is, just make sure that you reserve that time for the hardest things, the things that actually require focus from you. And here's a caution, especially with you creatives. Your most creative time might not be during that 1 to 3 hours. Honestly, creative time can be found sometimes when you're not thinking about anything. Sometimes it's when you're watching a movie or driving your car around or taking a shower. All of a sudden, creativity gets sparked. Sometimes your creativity is sparked when you're actually kind of tired or sleepy. It's kind of a weird thing. So your creativity might not be during that 1 to 3 hours. What I like to think of in that 1 to 3 hours is stuff that you know that you need to do. It just requires focus of actually getting it done, which sets us up for number 3, our 3rd step, which is to set boundaries and to save all less intensive tasks for another time of the day. So you know what your optimal time is. It means that you've got to create boundaries. You've got to set boundaries for your time, and nobody else can make you set those boundaries. So what that means is that if I only have 1 to 3 hours, if I only have a 1 to 3 hour block when I'm going to be at my most optimal time, then I don't need to be checking email. I don't need to be looking at texts. I don't need to be responding to texts. I don't need to be going on social media and doing mindless activity. All of this stuff steals your productivity away. And so if your best time of the day is during the morning, then and you're kind of like a gym rat, you like to exercise or something like that, then I would say don't do your exercise in the morning during your most optimal time. I know some people are like, well, I can't get my day started without my exercise, or I'm going to lose something. If you know your most productive time is, let's say it's between 5 to 8 in the morning, don't spend that time in the gym doing something that doesn't really require focus and brain activity. You're wasting your most productive time. And what I really think about this is, like the checking email, the text, and all this other stuff, it's not that that's not important things to do, but because it requires less brain power, then that means that I can save that for a time during the day that is less intensive. So maybe it's after lunch, maybe it's during lunch, maybe it's when I'm trying to wake up after consuming all those different carbs or something like that. Those are the times when it's less intensive, because I can hash out an email like that. I can send a text really quickly. But these are the things that we've got to do to start setting boundaries on when things are going to get done. Remember the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule that really applies in our everyday life. And it also applies during our work day as well. 80% of our work is really going to get done. Our best work, our most important work, is really going to get done in that 20% of time. And I want to utilize the rest of my day, if I need to get things done, the less intensive tasks, the less important kinds of things, the things that have to get done, but they don't require the kinds of focus. They don't, when I say focus, they don't require this high level of cognition. They don't require passion. They don't require real engagement in order to get them done. And so conserve every second that you have of that 1 to 3 hour window for the most important kinds of things, for the big stuff. Lastly, I'll say this, is that sometimes you can stretch out that 1 to 3 hours just by taking some rest breaks. Sometimes when you're really, really focused, you'll come up on a problem or something that's really difficult. And some of us kind of try to plow through because we just need to get it done. Sometimes the best thing that you can do to conserve that focus and intensity is just to take a 10-minute walk. Get away, make sure that you're getting away from your screen, because there's nothing inspiring at that moment on your screen or maybe in your office or whatever. Take 10 minutes, walk away from the problem, allow it to feed you, give you a little bit of a break, give your brain a rest, and you can conserve rather than burning through that energy because it's a hard problem. Just get away for 10 minutes, recharge, come back, and you'll notice that you're able to extend that time just a little bit longer. Now, I know some of you have jobs that you are getting emails throughout the day and you are having people who have time-sensitive items that are coming at you. What I say is at least give yourself 45 minutes to be in the flow, if you can do that. If you can do an hour, stay in that. And then set time aside to give 10 minutes, 15 minutes to responding to those emails. But make sure that you're setting boundaries on that. Don't go 20 minutes. Don't get lost in checking emails or lost in checking social media stuff if that's part of your job or whatever. Just make sure that you honor your time, that you create these boundaries, and you'll get the most out of your time that way. So, a lot of you probably think, oh, well, these 3 steps are kind of common sense. I hope that they are. But regardless, what I find is that most people aren't honoring their design. They're not working with their design. They're thinking something's wrong with me, or this was just a really long day. And honestly, if you can find your sweet spot and live into it and don't allow those distractions, you'll find that your day is much more fulfilling, it's much more impacting, and you're going to get a lot more accomplished. This is going to be really important for you coaches starting out, especially if you're working full-time already in a job. It will alleviate, it will create more free time for you to be able to accomplish what you need to. Because if you can get it done in 1 hour, what normally would have taken you 6 hours, It's all about finding your design and finding your sweet spot to really be able to accomplish that. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to encourage you to share it. If you've got, again, some tips that you have found that have increased your productivity, share it with us on social media. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, all of those places. We'll look for you there. Hey, I appreciate you a ton. Have a great rest of your week and take care.